Hello, and a warm welcome to This Woman's Work, a space where you can hear and read about some amazing women, the fantastic jobs they do, and the paths that have led them to where they are today. I'm here today with Lisa. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Michelle.
Could you tell the lovely listener what it is you do for a living?
Well, my business is called Bobo Bun's Sewing School, and I'm a teacher or lecturer by profession, but I'm a lifelong dressmaker, so now I teach other people how to sew in real life, all levels, and I teach people how to draft vintage-inspired clothes online.
And you look amazing. I'm just going to say that now. I've just said this to her off mic. You do look absolutely amazing. So, okay, before we go too far into that then, we're going to track all the way back and talk about little Lisa. What was she like? What was she into when she was a child?
Bits of who I am now and changed very much. I was brought up as an only child, so I was a very shy little girl, lived in a make-believe world of books and, I would have gymkhanas in the garden.
Amazing.
And I made all the school uniforms for my dolls, so they went to Enid Blyton's Mallory Towers, they went to boarding school. And so I was always creating. And my earliest memory, I was talking to my daughters about this, my earliest memory is in the house that I knew we left when I was 7, so I'd been younger than that, making an owl toy. And I remember it being one of my baby dresses, stuffing it with my mum's tights, and then those silver bun cases things.
Yes.
They were the eyes that I stuck on. I can absolutely visualise making this owl.
How did you know how to do that? Do you remember?
God knows, probably Blue Peter, I'd say. That's how we knew how to do most things.
Is Blue Peter still a thing?
I think so.
Is it?
Yeah, it must be. But
must be.
Yeah.
They couldn't.
But I mean, Blue Peter then, you made your Cindy hairdresser, you made anything, didn't you?
We made loads of stuff with that.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Simpler times.
Yeah,
Simpler
exactly.
times. Okay, so at school, what were your favourite subjects? What were your least favourite subjects?
I loved school. That's why it's very ironic I became a teacher. Well, not ironic I became a teacher. I think I became a teacher to do it the way it should be done, the way I felt it should be.
Yeah.
I'm adopted because I think that's very key to who I am. I was adopted as a child. I was always told I was adopted, so it wasn't a big issue.
Yeah.
And I was very proud of it because I was told you're special, you were chosen.
Yeah.
I know I wasn't chosen actually, but because I know the story of it all. But but it's what you tell children. So I kind of felt better than everybody else, but at the same time I had no fixed sense of identity. My dad, he's not here anymore, but he was a real ginger, really bright red hair. I'm 5'8", I'm 6 foot with dark hair, and my mum has dark hair but much shorter than me. And when I got older, I realised people probably thought she'd had an affair because I looked nothing like my dad, but everyone would say how much I looked like my mum. But they're really into sport. I'm not interested in sport. We're just really different. They're my mum and dad, who I obviously loved bits, but we looked so different. I didn't share similarities with them.
How interesting. Even though they had raised you, so do you mind asking when did they adopt you? What age were you?
Oh, they met me when I was 2 days old. They knew my birth mother while she was pregnant with me.
But bear in mind, you were from pretty much day one. Yeah. You were raised completely by them.
But you're different. As you get older, you were rejected. You weren't wanted because you still think, why didn't this person keep me? You don't know the whole story, I do now because I've researched so much. And you speak to any adopted person, they have this same feeling of rejection, lack of identity, not fitting in. Plus,
even if it's a loving, really loving home, there's still that niggly.
Yeah, it's still there because you could have been in another... I mean, if I grew up with my birth family, I would have been one of 5. I would have been raised as a Catholic. I would have, it wouldn't have been the same as being an only child. It would have been a different path, so probably a different me.
Yes.
So that you're kind of been put in another identity, a false identity. It's a really weird feeling. And I was always really much taller. Being 6 foot, I was always taller than other kids. So the conversations were going on down there. So all these things made me outsider. Okay. So as a child, being shy, feeling an outsider was very different. So I loathed school. I never quite fitted, but I was intelligent. But I stopped off by I was really good at art, and I went to art college straight from school just to get out of there on do A levels.
Yeah.
And the careers teacher at the time, when I told him what I wanted to do, he said, well, girls are nurses or mums.
Stop
So I
it.
thought, well, what's the point of talking to you?
Yeah.
And by the time I was leaving school, I would wear white lacy tights and white brogues rather than the uniform. I did everything. I had a big 50s quiff. I did everything. So I was already an anarchist.
Yeah.
You know, I thought, I'm going to embrace being an outsider. This is who I am and enjoy being.
Yeah.
And then I found the right people at art college. They were people like me that were all a bit misfitted. So I loved the textile design, but we had to make our fabrics that we designed and printed up into clothes. And I never knew my mum had a sewing machine or whatever. She'd knitted all my dolls' jumpers, but I didn't know she had a sewing machine. So she got that out and just showed me how to sew. And it's not like today when you go on YouTube. There was nothing. You just had to figure it out yourself. And that's at 16, 17. I just have not stopped sewing since then.
Wow. Okay. So obviously finish art school. Then what was the plan? What did you do?
I applied for fashion and textile degrees.
Yeah.
Most people I was at art college with, they were 18. They'd done A-levels. It's really rare to get in to one I went to. There's only me and my
without A-levels.
Still good friend who was 16. So the problem being, by the time you then go to a degree at 18, your art's not quite mature enough to do a fashion degree. You're behind these 20-year-olds. And I remember having an interview at Central St Martin's, and they were really taking the mickey out of my work. But I hadn't got the maturity to deal with it. It just crushed me, you know. But at 20, I'd have probably told them what they could do with it, you know, or stood up for myself. So I didn't do the degree then. I came back home and just sort of did waitressing jobs or whatever you do at that age.
Yeah.
Thought I'd go and do my A-levels at night school, but by this time I'd met became my first husband. He was in London finishing his degree, so I'd be down there having a good weekend and then just sleep through, you know, college when I got back to catch up. So that was a bit of a, you know, no game. But then I moved to London when I was 20 to move in with him. Just went in the job centre. They were the good old days. We went in, they gave you a card and you thought, oh, well, that looks all right, I'll do that, you know. And that was working with retired Met police officers in the court, you know, in South London.
Wow.
And my sergeant...
Gosh, that's very different to what you're doing now.
I mean, I was 20 and my sergeant had been on the team that had surveilled the Crays, and then he'd been there the night they arrested them. The stories they told me, I was just soaking this up. I did that
how interesting.
for 2 years. They offered me promotion and I thought, Christ, I could have a life in the civil service. So no disrespect to people who've liked a life as a civil servant, but to me the thought that I now have my career mapped out with a nice pension at the end was like, no. So I went to university and did an English and art history degree when I was 23.
Where did you go to uni?
Kingston Uni.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, because I was then living in Kingston, so I'd apply for all the unis around that area.
That's a great uni.
And so, I went there and had and fabulous time. And I think because I was older, I was there to get a good degree.
Yeah. Okay, so finish that degree, and then what?
And I don't know how I ended up at this. It was like what do you think, like employment agency. It was one near the Ritz in London. I don't know how I found it. And through them, I got a really good job with a PR and fine art antiques agency as the office manager. You know, so then you'd work your way up through, and then I, could move into writing. And I'd got no idea really what I wanted to do, but I knew the creative world was where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
So that was really great. But the boss there was hell. It turned out I was the 7th person to do that job that year. And the more I did the job, I was doing 60-hour weeks, and I'd be, say, working late on a Friday night, getting everything ready for her to fly out to Milan the next day for some exhibition. And she'd be effing and blinding at me. She was aristocracy, basically. You know, a very different attitude set.
Yeah.
So she'd be effing and blinding me that, I was, a taking bitch, and if I thought I was going to get paid more just because I couldn't do all my work in the set hours, rather than actually she needed all this done.
It's almost like your own little Devil Wears Prada story, isn't it?
Exactly. I just thought, no, you know what? This isn't because I'm weak. This is because I just don't need this in my life.
It's actually because you're strong and kind of go, this is toxic. This is...
Yes.
Wow.
So fine, actually. And because...
So how long were you there for, though?
I think it was a year and a half. And then I decided I wanted to become an English lecturer. So I was going to do my post-grad.
Yes.
I was going to do it part-time over 2 years.
Yeah. And were you married at this point or not?
Yeah. No. This was just coming up to when I was going to get married.
Yeah.
So we were planning the wedding, but it was a really quick one. Well, get married, go on honeymoon, enjoy that.
Yeah.
Then come back to the employment agency again. And I was going to do my course. So that was, I did do it over 2 years, but I did it part-time over 2 years. So I think I had 2 days a week I had to be at college and 3 days to work.
Okay, yeah.
And I got a job as a consultant psychiatrist, private secretary. So I just worked for different trusts, And the work in mental health, and sometimes sitting having a coffee in the room, I think it's staff I was talking to, and then you realise the type of conversation, they were people, either impatients or...
Of course,
and it gave me a greater understanding, and obviously how troubled some people were, and my interest in mental health and blah blah blah. Because that will impact later for what I do later on.
Yeah.
I would probably... Well, I was 26 to 28 I was doing that. Yeah, because I became a qualified lecturer at 28. Because I did my postgrad in FE, so I was 16 plus, so I could teach undergraduates, A-levels undergraduates. I didn't want to go into a school where they had to do English.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted them to be able to enjoy it. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay, so then graduate with that.
Yeah. And I'd been building up my CV, like taking over people's either night school classes.
Yes.
When somebody was ill, taking over their GCSE. So I was building up my CV, and doing A-levels and different things. And I remember, because when we were doing our training, you had to do at least 100 hours in the classroom, but it was trying to find somebody who'd let you have their class.
Yes, yeah.
And luckily I found this guy who was coming up to retirement, so I think he was sick to death of it. So he'd have my A-level class.
Go for your life, yeah.
And, inside you go, oh my God, because you've suddenly got to talk all this stuff. And even though you're taught to write lesson plans or lecture, you're not taught really how to do it.
Yeah.
Nobody tells you how to mark an essay to know what you're looking for. You just have to hit the ground running. You're paid for a 24-hour week, but you work a 60-hour week. So people going about teachers, you're like, God, you haven't got the idea of how hard we work. All weekends. And you have to figure it out as you're going at it.
So how long... So you did your 100 hours, and then did you get a teaching post?
So then it was a job that I hadn't got the first time. It was a sixth form college as full-time English lecturer.
Yeah.
And my head of department told me when I got the job the second time, and they re-advertised it 8 weeks later, he'd wanted to give me the job, but they'd given it, because I wasn't an NQT, but, a newly qualified teacher by then, because I'd built all my hours up doing lots of other things. So they went for the NQT because they were cheaper. That's who the principal wanted. And he said 6 weeks in, I saw him with his nose against the whiteboard, and the students were just throwing things at the back of his head, and he was crying. But then I came into that sixth form, and there was 250 students I had to teach because of all the different A-levels and BTECs and MVQs.
God,
so there was lots of students. They were all thinking, well, this course sucks because I've had a real wet wipe, teaching me. He was just in the wrong job, bless him, this guy. And so I had to go in being really hard from the beginning, because I then started in the January rather than the new cohort in September.
And you've got to basically
and I had to go in
all of that.
terrify the hell out of them, and then once
to get
they
them
were
where
behaving,
they needed to be
then they could see the nice me. So that was a great way to start a job.
But you did it. You did what you needed to do.
I did that, yeah. And I was really, really proud, that I got them through that A-levels, sitting them. I left my first husband during this time. And, I wasn't married again, but I was then pregnant. The head of media studies, who was my second husband.
Yeah.
I became pregnant with my first daughter.
Yeah.
And I was coming up to them finishing, their 2 years. I'd been there 2 years. I was 30, coming up to 31, I think. So it was about the time, it was about 29, I'd realised I'd quite like children. I'd not really thought about it before then. So finding I was pregnant, unplanned, I was thrilled. I thought, I don't mind if I do this on my own or not. I just knew I want this baby, whatever. But obviously we then moved in together, and it was all good. And through sad events, because before I'd met him, his dad had died the year before his mum that year. We didn't need a mortgage. He'd inherited everything.
Okay.
And I always saw that as their gift to our children.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
at least they were
yeah.
going to mean them, that I could be there for them, bringing them
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
But within a year, we'd moved to Norfolk. So,
Wow.
because it's where I was originally from. And
Yeah.
I hadn't had my second daughter by then, but suddenly, you know, travelling backwards and forwards all the
Yeah,
time as a child,
yeah.
it's let's come back up here. So that's what we did. But yeah, I didn't work for the
you were a
first
mum.
8, 9
That
years.
is hardcore.
But when I'd had my second daughter, there's Rosie, my oldest, was 9 months old when I got pregnant with Millie. That was a bit of a shock.
Oh, wow.
I wanted
one of my
another child,
best friends
but-
that happened with.
But you
yeah.
thought it might take a bit longer.
Yeah.
And then by the time I'd got both of them, a toddler and a baby, and I felt I was changing endless nappies, and I thought, where have I gone? This is so boring.
Yeah.
So I set my own small business up from then on, selling. Went back to my love of everything I made, making vintage inspired bags, brooches, buying vintage homeware. I've always, you know, ever since I was a child, I was always at jumble sales, flea markets, buying things. I would be wearing 1960s dresses when I was 15. You know, I've always loved, you know, that vintage aesthetic.
Style
And about fast fashion and sustainability nowadays, I just find it funny because at times I've had no money, other times I've had loads of money. So having no money, it's just how you live anyway, and I love that stuff. So it's kind of like, that's what we've always been doing, but now it's fashionable to be doing it. And obviously it's necessary to be doing it, but it's just kind of like, a lot of us were doing that. It was just called old people's clothes then, you know, dead people's clothes. It wasn't called vintage.
Charity shop.
Yeah, it was just stinky stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
I know you have a little life in you yet. I know you have a lot of strength left. I know you have a little life.
So yeah, I set up selling vintage homeware and my makes. And
That you were
selling at market.
customising and things like that.
Yeah, and I did 13 markets a year, and it just.
Of course, so back then, were you online then, or was it literally in person at markets?
That
and
didn't
things?
come till a bit later.
Yeah. So that's just literally in person at markets, selling and stuff. With your little kiddies.
No, they'd sit home and have a lovely time. Yeah, I'd leave about 6 or 7 in the morning to get to wherever I'd got to go to for this market. Then I'd come home with about 200-300 quid of cash.
Brilliant.
You know, and it's your self-esteem. You've made yourself some money, and then crash forward to a few. I'll just quickly summarise this bit. I think I could go on forever. But when my daughters were 8 and 9, it was. I don't know which recession. We've had so many of them now.
No, don't.
But it was one or other recession. And my daughter's dad, who I'm no longer with, but he had his own educational consultancy. And before that, he'd come from lecturing to work for the government,
Right.
going around problem solving around the country. And he was earning silly money.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
ludicrous.
Yeah.
So we didn't need to worry. But he said that comes at a cost that I'm never seeing my children.
Yeah.
So he did that for about 2 years. And then he set up this educational consultancy. Recession, he had to really pull back. He was losing a lot of funding. So we needed another income because you've got a mortgage. I'd got this car on HP, you know.
Yes, yeah.
So first thing I did was drove that in, got rid of that. You know, got something, tiny. You know, you just try and solve things. As the mum and the woman, you seem to be the one.
Yeah.
I managed to get a 3-day-a-week teaching job out as community outreach. And that was working with, that's where I say the mental health, having worked as secretary helped, because it was working with adults with mental health issues and ex-offenders, who many had mental health issues.
Gosh, that's
and
almost
if I
looping
hadn't
in your
worked in
previous...
mental health with an appreciation of it, I wouldn't have got that because it tied with the teaching.
Yes.
That's why I said at the beginning how it all
weaves
feeds
in. Yeah.
And so I did that, 3 days a week. Ex-husband had then, as part of his educational consultancy, partnered with Norfolk Adult Education because he'd got loads of other projects for homeless people. I'm not going to press him
no,
because he's a
no.
narcissist. He doesn't need PR.
No.
But this project was for 16 plus. They're called NEETs, not in education, employment or training.
Right.
And it was a brilliant project. And I'd already interviewed with these people, so it wasn't nepotism. I'd already interviewed and got a job with them. So they were going to employ me, but then I got moved over to the partnership one. Because he said, I think you'd be great with our really tricky ones.
Yeah.
Because this project was training youngsters who left school, half of them couldn't read or write. They came from, they'd either been in care, they'd been in young offenders, they were home. There was so many issues.
Wow.
And learning difficulties and everything. And they could go on car mechanic courses, hairdressers, but
brilliant.
they do their English, maths, IT. It was about everything. And we were all, adult education is built really of people who've done 6 weeks petal courses. So they're not teachers. They just kind of know how to teach.
So they've lucked out with you, basically.
Yeah, they know how to teach, say, ladies who want to come and do a nice course. Not going to be tricky.
Yeah.
We were all like masters and PhD level because we needed the experience to know how to bring it. So it was a really good core course. And I had the hardest ones, the ones that couldn't even cope on going on any. And I'd only get funding to have them for 10 weeks, but sometimes I could fight to keep them for more.
Wow.
Because I'd know, like, with the security, because we became their family.
Yeah.
The only
But you've still got quite young kids at this point, haven't you?
I'm trying to think. I think they were just finishing, primary, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Going to high school.
Yeah, like 10.
But that high school then
thing.
was in the city where I was living, because we lived in the countryside. But
okay.
And the school they went to, they could stay till at 6 o'clock.
Right,
so
it worked.
It was set up the school so that for working mums and so that worked.
Not working dads. Working
Oh God,
mums.
no, not working dads at all. 'Cause it still falls on you, even though they say they'll help out.
I know.
Because it's the word help out that's not a good one.
I know.
And that is something, if anybody is young listening to this, when I went to uni, I was like early 20s, but I had friends who were 10 years older, so they've got children. And I've never forgotten, one of them said, when you have children, however you set it up from the beginning is how it will always be. So if you're the full-time mum, you will always be the full-time mum. It won't be shared. Just remember that.
And how did you do that for?
I don't know, 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
My friend who was my TA said when we ended the job, she said, I like you more now. She said, you'd become aggressive.
As a coping mechanism.
I think you're just used to that.
Yeah, being on high alert almost.
And like one day a week, my ex-husband was working there. We were on different projects, then he was in somewhere else. But then Ofsted came in to do a management Ofsted.
Okay.
But the management were adult ed. They were all like navy suit wearing ladies with little gold crucifixes who were scared witless of our students. They never came near them.
Yes.
They were terrified. It was like two worlds. So they hadn't got a clue, and they were all quite ineffectual. They'd written themselves a glowing Ofsted report. Ofsted had to then look at all the projects that were run under their supposed management. We'd had an outstanding for our Ofsted. They were given a paw. Because they were given a paw,
that's a radical.
all funding was ceased.
Stop it.
So the programme was closed down. You could take on no... So the programmes were still running. They were allowed to finish. Mine was a new sign-on every 10 weeks, a new cohort of students. You weren't allowed to take any new referrals. So I lost my job overnight. At the same time as my marriage ended, I found out he was having an affair with someone.
No, so you keep having these weird pinnacle days,
so
don't
I was
you?
like, I've been made redundant in my marriage and my job.
Okay, so when that role ended then, and obviously appreciate you're in a very dark place, but getting up, dressing up, showing up, what then happened then? Where did you go from there?
Then made redundant. I think that was the April. Sold our house in the July. I mean, luckily we lived in a desirable village and it was a lovely house. So
still quite a quick turnaround.
Yeah,
though,
and I said to the girls, we'll do it so we move out in the summer, so it'll be your school holidays.
Good plan.
I knew it would sell quickly, so I was like, right, we're doing this place up and we'll sell it. And we had chickens and all sorts, so I had to rehome animals and things. It was a real dismantling. And then I moved to the city so that my daughters could walk to school, and I knew I wanted to be having a career somewhere in fashion, dressmaking, because I sewed I sew every day.
Yeah.
Before you turned up to talk to me, I
can see it's all out.
I drafted a pattern for a skirt and started sewing that for my daughter this morning. I was finishing up a top, so I'm just like, it's what I do.
Yeah.
So what was I going to say? So I knew I wanted to be leading to where I am now, but I didn't know how it's going to pan out. And then I got a message from who I talked to a lot and since friends with, the owner of the biggest sewing fabric shop in the city. And next door, because they own all the buildings, they have this big building with all the sewing machines, and they run courses, and they hadn't done them for a while. He got in touch with me and said, would I freelance for them as a tutor? Because he knew I was a qualified teacher.
Yes.
So yeah, I went and taught, and then the first course I did there, I said, right, I'm going to teach a fitting course, and it's how to alter patterns to fit your body.
Yes, okay, yeah.
And the more I did it, I realised, I love this. And I put it on Instagram. That's what I was saying about, I love teaching, I love dressmaking. And so many people were coming back with, you've got to bring these together into your new career. The two can collide. And that's when the freelance opportunity. And then another, it's not adult ed, but it was adult education without sort of paperwork. And it was people want to learn writing or Spanish or sewing.
Okay, yeah.
So this guy who's a lecturer had set his own business up doing that. Friends saw he wanted a dressmaking teacher, so they messaged me.
Oh, wow.
And I got in touch with him, and it turns out he knew friends of mine from adult ed. He used to be a manager, so it's all there.
It's all connected.
And he knew who I was and trusted me. So I think I did it for about 5-6 years for both of them, freelancing.
Yeah.
Really honed how I wanted it to be.
Yes, yeah.
And the second guy I freelanced for was atrocious. He couldn't run a business to save his life. I was always picking up and major mistakes, the clients were really unhappy, and I was they were big boo-boos.
Yeah.
And I was doing a lot for free to pick it up, and they were constantly complaining, going, you do this a lot better yourself.
Yeah.
And that week, when they'd said it more and more, I think that was in the July, that next day I emailed them all, went, right, I've set my own business up. I hadn't registered my name, I hadn't got anything, I hadn't got anything. I went, right, I've set my own business up, but I said, I have spoken to the venue, I've got it for these dates. They'd all signed up, I'd sold it all out. Within 2 weeks they were all full. So then I started advertising to get new people on, because you obviously had to keep the numbers, keep the flow. And I think for the first 5 months I kept going to bed thinking, oh shit, how long is this going to last? When's the bottom going to fall out?
Yeah.
And 2 years later, I'm now on my summer break because no one wants to do the courses, so I have August off.
Yeah.
But they're already sold out, so I've got, money up till November, and I've already got a waiting list for the ones that are going on till January.
Brilliant.
It's early days with the business, but I've got so many people that have stayed with me for years, new people coming in. I haven't got a website. I literally find all the...
This is all on social.
And Facebook groups where they're like saying, women's only hubs, and they'll be, I want to learn to sew.
Yeah.
Right. I go in there, advertise. The local
lovely.
sewing shop. I send all my students there for their sewing machines to be serviced by so they get 10% discount.
Yeah.
So they let me advertise all my stuff there, and they put it on their
yeah.
website. So it really works. All of these things.
Wow.
So I did it on a wing and a prayer, where I'd been talking about setting it up, like my YouTube, like my Patreon. I kept talking about doing them, but I was trying to make them perfect.
Yes.
But because I got so fed up with this guy, rather than it got perfect, I was just like, do you know what, hell, let's do this.
Yeah.
My Patreon, I knew how that wanted to be online, because I wanted to be like a magazine subscription, really fun, loads of content.
Yeah.
And I talked about it for a year. My youngest daughter in the end went, for goodness sake, set a date and stick to it.
Yeah.
So we set a month from then, June the 1st. Then I'd got to do it.
Yeah.
So I would say to anybody in business, you've got an idea, don't worry, because I literally...
Doesn't have to be perfect.
We're sat here where my workplace is. I'm in a terraced house. It's open plan. I'm in the dining room, but it's really like my sewing room that they can eat in. The kitchen's off it.
Yeah.
And everything's hidden away. I have to get stuff out. I film how to pattern cut here. I do all my business admin here. I do
Yeah.
everything, and it has to fit around the hours when people aren't here at work.
Yeah, yeah.
So I haven't got a shiny. My students have got sewing rooms. I'm the one who should have the sewing room. I haven't, but it still works.
But you will do.
But what I mean is, you can do it. Whatever
You can do it.
Rather
Yeah.
than keep saying I need this, I hadn't got the business set up. I hadn't got the branding. So the girl that wanted to do the fashion degree is kind of I've gone whoop.
Yeah,
and
but you
right
got
back
there. You got there.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next then? So you're here now. Is there a big master plan, or are you just going to literally see how this goes organically and take each day as it comes?
Well, I teach 3 sewing clubs a week, which I love for the community, the social well-being, and they love it as much. And then every couple of months I'll do a beginner's course.
Yeah.
And I used to do monthly workshops. I'm pulling back from them. But because my plan is, I found through the Mavens, it's an amazing venue. It really is beautiful to run retreats. So it could
How long
maybe
would the
work that way.
retreat be?
It would be, I was thinking about doing a weekend, but I'm not sure now. I might do it like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it'd be, it would be, because if it was a weekend, it would be arriving on a Friday about 5, leave on a Sunday afternoon. So the other thing was about beginners, because my Patreon is assuming people can sew. Because if you do it just beginner level, people are always going to progress. So there's nothing for them to progress to. So you've got to always do it assuming people are at this level that they will get enough of it, or they can return back to it to do it. And
Yes, yeah.
so I need to do the beginners as a standalone. Then if I could film enough standalone how to start sewing, like I do in my beginners courses, that people buy as a package.
Yes, yeah.
So, because the business advice I had was, you need those, I can't think what the term was now, but those ones, when you're asleep, they're making money.
Yeah,
That's when you make your money.
Yeah, yeah, which is like your YouTube
and my Patreon. And But, you need the digital products out there.
Yeah. Well,
So-
and also it means it can be consumed globally as well.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to ask you my 3 final questions, which are, what life advice would you give your younger self? Could be any version of your younger self. Little Lisa. Do you think she needed any advice? You as you now, what do you think she could have done with knowing?
I was thinking 2 ways. Would it be about business or about men? If it was about men, I'd say just hang back a bit and stop making the wrong decisions every time. Have a bit more thought, then you'll be happy. And the other one would be, don't be afraid whatever you're doing, it's not the wrong thing, because this is all going to lead to what you really are going to be so happy at doing and being. You'll be feeling you're living the life you were meant to be living.
Yeah, but you're just not going to take the straightest path there. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so the second question is, what advice would your older self give you now? So maybe 70-year-old Lisa,
Okay.
what would she say to you now?
She'd say, I'm really bloody proud of you. Sorry, that is quite emotional to say.
It is, it's lovely.
Because you don't say, because Millie, my youngest today, I can't remember what it was about now. I think we were talking about parenting, and she said, you should be really proud of yourself, because not every mum does. Because I went, that's not a mum's job, and she went, not every mum does. You should be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
And I changed the subject, and she said, say it after me, because she knows I've got a problem with saying,
Yeah.
I think we all have. So I think that's why I got emotional, saying the older me would say, I'm proud of you, because we don't stop still to acknowledge that.
No. She'd be really proud of you.
Yeah.
Okay, then the final question is just some life advice or a mantra throw up there for other women or for anyone, but is there anything that, words you live and die by, or that that really resonate with you? Sayings, mantras?
My hardest time, I think, when my marriage ended and we had to sell the house. So obviously my daughters were young teenagers. It was taking a part of her life. So it felt the worst moment. And I used to say to myself over and over, everything will be okay because it has to be okay. There was no other options.
Yeah.
I won't allow other options in.
So it
has to be okay. Because, I'm going to make it okay.
Wow.
I don't know if that is if kind of wisdom for anybody, but that's when I was like, oh, wobble, I can't do this.
Yeah.
That's what I would say to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that also comes with a level of just digging deep self-belief, though, doesn't it? So I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going, kind of thing. Yeah. Brilliant. I'm going to say thank you very much, Lisa.
No, it's been really lovely talking to you, Michelle. It is like being in a therapy session, so I've super enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. If you would like to hear more about this chat, see some pics and read about how to get started in this industry and or this role, then please go to our website www.thiswomanswork.org. The link is on this podcast page and across our socials. Sincere thanks.